everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Sacred Citadel. This is a side-scrolling, fantasy-themed beat-em-up, the kind of game you have seen, probably a dozen times before, if not more. But, a lot of people are into these kind of side-scrolling beat-em-ups. The most recent example of a super popular side-scrolling beat-em-up that I can really think of is probably Castle Crashers. But, of course, this genre has a storied history, going back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time, Double Dragon, Streets of Rage, etc., etc. When it comes to beat-ups, or beat-em-ups, I should say, I have kind of a love-hate relationship. I've got a lot of nostalgia for those games that I played as a kid, but it's been a long time since I played a new beat-em-up that really tickled my fancy and made me really enjoy myself. Even Castle Crashers I found pretty repetitive at times, although I do like it overall, especially as a co-op experience. Sacred Citadel, been a little bit, of the same old for me. I've had a reasonable amount of fun with it if I'm, being as polite as I can possibly be, but at the same time, a lot of button mashing, not a whole lot of skill-based combos, at least in the hour or so that I've played so far, but it does have an online component where you can play co-op with your friends, and local multiplayer as well. So, for all the games that I've mentioned so far, this isn't really so much of a Double Dragon or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing as it is a Golden Axe kind of, I wouldn't say knockoff, but perhaps a send-up of Golden Axe. So why don't we go through one of the levels that I've already done here. Maybe we'll take a look at, let's go with the mine. This is our second level that we've done through here. And I'll give you a basic feel for how this game works so far. Now, keep in mind, I have only played as the warrior so far. So when it comes to the button mashing elements I'm going to be talking about here, then, that could change when it comes to other classes. But as always, these are first impressions type videos with the caveats and benefits contained therein. So I'm just using the X button here on my Xbox 360 controller. I have not used the PC controls, so I do not know how it works. This should be a fairly easy level for me to beat. Because I have weapons that are from a little bit later in the game, which should thus basically cut through these guys like tissue paper, which is good, because then we can get on to a later level. I'm almost finished with the first act of the game, that indicates to me, if I know anything about beat-em-ups, that we will probably have some kind of, overall, the biggest boss fight that we've had so far, and maybe some story involved as well. The story of the game is, pretty by the numbers as far as fantasy settings go. There's an evil villain who appears to be some kind of orc or goblin, and basically they're terrorizing the town that we were just having a drink in. So in terms of our combat, we've got a few different things at our disposal here. I am dual wielding. It's got kind of like a, I don't necessarily want to say a DMC or Devil May Cry style weapon system, but in a way it does. Our X button is tied to our primary weapons, which are these double, or mace and axe that we've got going on here. And our Y button is tied to our big weapon, which I think right now is also like a two-handed axe, but I can't really tell because the animation moves so fast. And by interspersing, or, hitting different combinations of X and Y, we will be able to execute certain combos here that have differential effects. It also has, it's not just X and Y, as it is in a lot of beat-em-ups. You can also use the directions, like, hitting left or right on the analog stick, in conjunction with X or Y, may cause differential effects. Or different moves. Let's wait until this minecart gets out of the way. We've got some minecart carnage here. The movement from, across the plane, moving up and down, I find very unsatisfying, and a little bit, frozen in a way. It almost feels, sticky. I don't know. The characters feel real weighty when I try to move, up and down. But the positive here is that there is a dodge roll, and you can not only dodge roll in two directions here, you can also dodge down and up. So generally speaking, if you're trying to move between kind of two parallel lines on a plane, that's going to be your best bet, I would say. So my number one complaint about my experience with Sacred Citadel so far is the fact that the combat is super button mashing-y, and this is the kind of thing that probably doesn't matter to a lot of people. I felt that Castle Crashers suffered from this as well, even though that is a fan favorite. Not that, that's the only thing that separates this game from Castle Crashers. But it's super button mashing-y. In my time with the game so far, I have not died, and in addition to that, I've gone through the entire game basically just mashing the X button on my 360 controller. I wish that I had any incentive to use these combos. Every time you level up, the game will, almost every time you level up anyway, the game will indicate to you that there is a new combo available or a new special move available, but I've never really had to use them because the AI, and you might be able to notice it here, I gave that guy an in and he just kind of walked away. They'll repeatedly, kill themselves, as I guess just happened right there. Generally speaking, they're not as aggressive as they are in most beat-em-ups, so even crowd control is not a major problem. Now, we are, to a certain extent, somewhat early in the game, so maybe that'll change a little bit later. But at the same time, I can be in a crowd, And the whole point of beat 'em ups, or the whole strategy in beat 'em ups, at least from my experience with them, which is not necessarily meager, is that you want to get all the enemies on the same side as you, so that you can, you know, hit them all at once, and thus like dodge them all at once as well. Whereas in this game, it kind of doesn't matter. You can just stand in the middle of enemies, because the AI is so bad that they will literally just stand still a lot of the time. Alright, so right bumper plus Y is going to allow us to do the Crusher here, apparently, which we've just unlocked for leveling up. Let's see if I can do that. I guess that would be that right there. Cool. Alright. So that's probably a super high damage attack, if I had to guess. We'll just unleash. Oh, I fucked it up. We are going to have a boss fight here. This is not going to be a significant problem. There is a block button, but, you know, like the fact that I haven't had to use many or any special combos, I've barely had to use block. I've used it occasionally for the arrows that these guys hit out. This is one of the few exceptions where there are few situations where I don't just mash X. When I'm fighting bosses, I like to use X and Y, I guess, because, I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm doing more damage. I don't know, it just has a stronger feel, I suppose. So, you know, every boss fight that I've had so far, I guess these are technically mini-bosses because they're not the actual bosses of the world, and they're actually fairly easy, as you can tell. But every boss fight I've had so far, along these lines, has just been like a little bit of crowd control plus one big bad, and it gets pretty boring pretty quickly. You quickly start to realize, or at least hypothesize, that the reason they do this kind of crowd control and they have to throw in these tiny mobs is because the boss fight would not be difficult enough nor original enough on its own to kind of stand up if you only had that existing enemy. What do we have here? Defense is going to be lower if I take that, so I'm not going to. There's the very most superficialist, which is probably not a correct use of words there, but there's a very superficial element of platforming here, as you can see. I don't necessarily strike that as a negative or a positive, just it does exist. So this should be the end of this level, and we will get a kind of end of level summary screen, yes, which will tell us the amount of damage we did, the amount of experience we got, our rank on the level, which I guess that crest, I originally thought that was a meter. That went from, like, you know, the far left to the far right, but I guess actually it's like gold, silver, and bronze, so I've earned gold on that level. And I've got 2 unspent points that I can put anywhere here. I'm not going to waste any time, really, explaining what's up with attack, defense, dexterity, and power. If you haven't seen these before, then you know, probably, well, maybe this is a good jumping in point for you, I guess, then, but obviously those tie to your attributes like, you know, damage, vitality, etc., etc. Let's check out Mossback, because this is the last level, as far as I know, in Act 1. There are 4 or 5 acts in the game. From a single-player standpoint, 100% cannot see myself playing through this game entirely by myself, which just, to me, seems like an exercise in boredom and repetition. Now, this should be a little bit more difficult. It's possible maybe I'll faint a couple of times. You can see, like, you know, in true Dark Souls fashion, the bosses that we fought earlier will eventually just become kind of larger-style mobs. Weapons, by the way, you know, we can go to a town, we can upgrade our weapons, or buy new weapons, we can upgrade our armor, or buy new armor, as you might expect. Let's try this Crusher move, if I could actually make it work. Yeah, it seemed to do a decent amount of damage. We can charge it up as well. 183 damage, that's actually really good. But yeah, I mean, most of the time, most of the weapons that I've been using, I've just found kind of in the environment so far. It's a weird experience. From a single-player level, this game is not engaging to me in the least. I'm not sure if I'm playing it on an easy difficulty. To the best of my memory, there was no difficulty setting, so this is just kind of default and only difficulty. Maybe you unlock another one when you beat the game or something. But it's been super easy so far. Really, just an exercise in kind of mashing buttons and testing your patience. I wonder if I can just double jump up here if there's something. Nope. All right. I was wondering, maybe there's a different puzzle or something that I have to get involved in. We're fighting these miners, no big deal. What was the, I had one more thing I was going to say. I guess I was going to have a caveat. Oh, by the way, I guess. This is the first time I've ever seen these things fall from the sky in this game, but I have seen it in, you know, 25,000 other beat-em-ups before in history. So, it seems to definitely, you know, it wears its inspirations on its sleeve, shall we say. Golden Axe in particular. There's basically, like, there's birds that you can ride on, like the cockatrice in, Golden Axe that make an appearance here as well. And, you know, far be it for me to say that this is a Castle Crashers inspired game, or maybe it was the development was inspired by the success of Castle Crashers, but there are some set pieces that kind of look Castle Crashers-y too, but I guess that's just more of a product of the fantasy setting, kind of, I don't know, being mined pretty dry when it comes to video games at this point. For the most part, anyway. I'm not necessarily hating on all fantasy games by any stretch of the imagination. This guy apparently just did not understand that I was beating up his friends, or maybe I beat them too early and he wasn't able to get that mob up and running. I don't know, man. There's some weird technical issues in the game. Sometimes, I mean, we've already talked about the AI, but you'll see the AI being terrible as we play through this as well. There's times when, you know, legitimately I'm stunning the AI. This is Grimlock Mama is the enemy that I thought I was supposed to be fighting here as a boss. Unless this is the big bad. No, it looks like the big bad is going to be Treebeard here. So this guy looks... This actually looks like it might be a more interesting boss fight, because it doesn't appear that this is going to be an enemy that I fight, you know, that's just kind of like a big monster. Instead, I have to fight his hands, I guess, which is cool, except that I'm just realizing now that his hands are super weak. So, of course, they will throw some crowd control in here. I'm not hating on the game from a design standpoint unnecessarily, I think. For me, it's just like, I don't know. It's unfair to compare every game to Dark Souls, but having played so much Dark Souls, I'm like, well, the boss fights in that game are so interesting that they stand alone for the most part. You know, some of them, Nito obviously has some skeletons that are spawned, but for the most part, you're basically just one-on-one fighting a boss, because the design on those boss fights is so good. Now, it's not fair to compare every game to Dark Souls, especially, you know, a side-scrolling beat-em-up that is largely, I think, just meant as a button masher that you can jump into with your friends. But at the same time, you know, I am critiquing this from a single-player standpoint, and from a single-player standpoint, I feel that this experience is, you know, pretty rote, and, you know, if I might even be a little bit more impolite than usual, maybe even a little tedious. So I'm just going to wait until this hand comes down. I guess I took some substantial damage there. That's okay, though. Mossback is very nearly dead, and if that's the end of this level, I'm going to be very disappointed, because this has not been difficult so far. I mean, you guys know, let's be honest here, that Northernlion sucks at video games meme exists for a reason. Okay, now we're just fighting real Mossback. Yeah, that exists for a reason, and I am having basically zero trouble with this game so far. So I don't know if I'm supposed to platform here or what's going on with this. Oh, stand behind the rocks, because he's got some kind of heat laser vision, I guess. How am I supposed to hurt this guy? Oh, I just go for the hands again. Maybe not? Okay, we'll see. Oh, the head? Alright, the head indeed. Ow, wow, this guy's super easy, I guess. Or at least, maybe I'm just really strong. Like, maybe I invested my money in the right place. So I have these weapons now that are pretty solid. I don't know. Graphically, the game looks fine. It's not great. It's a little bit, I don't want to say insipid. That wouldn't necessarily be fair, but it doesn't necessarily offer that much inspiration, I feel. I actually might die here, but I think I managed to kill the boss before dying, and he's going to die like Ceaseless Discharge there. Maybe I should go attack his fingers. We'll just cut this dude down to size. He's been stun locked. Please drop a ham or something. So we leveled up again, and that would actually lower our damage. I guess we'll go stand in this glowing white fuck me circle, and something will happen. That's going to be the end of Act 1. That took like 2 seconds. I'm trying to make above 12-minute long videos here, excuse me. I guess maybe we'll move on to another level. I'll upgrade my defense, because I did get sort of close to dying there. Yeah, only 4 acts, unless there is a secret 5th act. Act 1 took me a little bit over an hour. I guess, you know, I'll move on to Act 2, and hopefully I'll be able to skip over the cutscene. But in the meantime, why don't we talk about the town here. The town is very, very simplistic. I'm not going to spend very much time in it at all. But, you know, you walk in here, you can buy and sell goods, like potions, as you can see from this lady. I haven't talked at all about the potions, because I haven't really seen a need to use them. This guy will probably sell some kind of crystal. This is obviously an armor shop. Apparently we're not high enough level anyway.
Change your equipment.
And we are moving to some kind of haunted town, apparently. At least it's not necessarily just a desert area, like every RPG that I've played since Diablo 2. That's not fair, necessarily, to say that. Good, B can skip this, because I don't care about the story at all. That might seem a little bit deliberately ignorant, but honestly, after watching the opening cutscene, it basically is just pretty by the numbers. So in the bottomless mire here, I guess that's our big bad for this level, is the Grimlock Shaman. Or Shaman, I guess. And I realize that I might seem like I'm kind of selling this game short. There's always a certain contingent of people that comment on these videos, and I don't mean this to be negative at all. You know, it takes different strokes to rule the world. But always a certain kind of people that are like, Northernlion, I don't get why you're hating on this. It looks fun. And, you know, to a certain extent, there is a little bit of element of, you know, just some juvenile pleasure. Not to, you know, make this seem more heady than it actually is, but some juvenile pleasure and just, you know, mashing on the button and watching enemies kind of sunder beneath your axe and your mighty muscles. There's a combo system as well, as you can see by the fact that we're up to 76 here. The fact that I didn't even notice that I got to 76 should indicate how difficult it was for me to get there. I don't even know what we just found on the ground. Looks like a lot of gold. And, you know, again, in the game's defense, it's fun enough at what it does, but at the same time, there are myriad games readily available at this price point. This is 15 bucks, that I would recommend ahead of this. Castle Crashers, now out on PC. Go pick it up. If you're looking for a single-player beat-em-up, you know, I haven't played a great single-player beat-em-up in a long time. But in terms of like 2D, kind of bash their brains in a little bit, consider getting Guacamelee on PS3. It's much more of a Metroidvania style, but it's a lot more fun nonetheless. It's a game that I feel just kind of doesn't really fit anywhere. You can even, as far as I can remember, you can still get Golden Axe for like $5 on Xbox Live Arcade. I would almost encourage that over this, because at least that has some kind of old school charm. That being said, you know, the fact that this does have online multiplayer means that it might be a decent pickup if you and your friends are interested in playing it. The other one I was going to suggest is if you're looking for something a little bit more puzzly, then consider getting Trine 2, which has actually a similar art style, but substantially better executed, in my opinion. And, you know, offers a lot of kind of unique co-op fun as well. But, you know, those games are a little bit different from this game, but seriously, just get Castle Crashers if you don't have Castle Crashers already. And if you already have, you know, played the shit out of Castle Crashers, maybe I might suggest save your money and just play through Castle Crashers again. This doesn't do anything for me that I haven't gotten from Castle Crashers, if that makes sense. And, you know, if you're not a fan of that kind of games criticism, I guess, where it's like, this is this game but worse, then I apologize. So I am using some of these potions here. There are, that's what the aura around me basically is banned. I never realized, actually, that the level up actually contained, like, a splash damage AoE as well. That's kind of cool, though. Not necessarily unusual, but a little bit rarer, I guess. Usually they just give you full health. But yeah, still basically here we are in Act 2. Mashing buttons. Not even mashing buttons. I'm deliberately just mashing a single button, and it's working out well for me. Just like it worked for my damn brother in Street Fighter. It's not fair, man. You can't do E-Honda's 1,000-hand slap and just expect to be Street Fighter Pro. That's a lie, by the way. I was the one doing the 1,000-hand slap. Also, I don't have a brother. Where is this piranha? There we go. We'll just continue cutting him up. Just largely, I don't know. Maybe with the different classes, there's more kind of variety and fun to be had here. There we go. We got a good weapon. I do like the pickup system where you can just pick it up immediately on the fly. Again, that's not unusual, but I appreciate that it doesn't muck around in the inventory system too long. All these weapons have different elemental effects, by the way. I don't know what these ones do. We might have lost our stun, and in return taken like a poison hit or something. I see some green coming out from our weapons, but that might just be the combo meter. I can't really tell. Yeah, it's a game that I feel is a difficult sell at its current price point, just because of the fact that the competition is kind of better than it. Obviously, we have not lost our stun, unless that stun is tied to critical attacks to begin with. I do dislike that you can't pick up weapons when you're in the middle of combat. You have to wait until a wave is finished and then you can do it, but that's a very minor gripe. For the most part, though, 15 bucks on Steam. It's also available on Xbox Live Arcade and PSN, so, you know, it's the fact that it's available everywhere is both a strength and a weakness, because it means that, you know, there's better games at this, or doing this, available on every single platform as well. Not to be offensive to the developer, I'm sure a lot of hard work went into this. It's just, it's a little bit rote for me. We did pick up some new armor. I like that the armor changes your appearance as you go. That was a sore spot in games like Dungeons of Dreadmore for me. Not that those two games are very similar, but I appreciate that whenever it happens nonetheless. Alright, so we've got a Necromancer here. So I guess, you know, in true beat-em-up fashion, I'm going to try to focus on the Necromancer first. By beating the Necromancer, I should be able to stop the flow of new enemies. It's just like killing you know, a nub in The Binding of Isaac. Now the Necromancer is basically dead. Or like killing a Necromancer in Dark Souls, I suppose. It's just not that fun. Like, I spend so much time just mashing on the button. Like, give me something more. I feel like this is a game where you are bringing the entertainment. Like, if you... The game itself doesn't really offer that much in terms of enjoyment. It's you bringing your friends in that's going to make this enjoyable. Which is... I don't know, it leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth. It's a game that I don't think stands on its own very well. In fact, the more I play it, even for this video, the less I find myself enjoying it. I mean, and the other thing is, like, with this difficulty curve, these enemies are so easy. The AI sometimes gets stuck on objects in the world. I've had a few weird prompts, like during the game's tutorial, a bunch of like graphical glitches kind of stuck around. Like it would be like, press X to get on top of the cockatrice, or I think they just say ride in this game. But press X to ride the cockatrice, and then, you know, I press X and then it just stays up on the screen for like, I don't know, another 3 minutes until I finish the level. It's frustrating, and I don't necessarily think it's indicative of it being a broken or buggy product, but, you know, these things all kind of coalesce together to make for an experience that I don't necessarily consider to be, you know, one of the essential ones on Steam as of right now. So, we're gonna knock these dudes down with an axe, do some skull crushing. This crusher move is one of the very few that I've gotten so far. Did the necromancer just raise himself from the dead? Alright, I call bullshit on that. That was the whole crux of this necromancy nonsense, is that that's not supposed to be allowed to happen. Now we'll just kind of stick these guys in the corner. I don't know. I'm running out of things to say positive or negative on this game, if we're going to be honest. You can probably tell by the way my commentary has been recycling itself a little bit here. But, you know, I've said my piece, I think, on Sacred Citadel. It's not horrible by any stretch of the imagination. It just doesn't necessarily compare well to a lot of other games in the genre, especially at this price point. Not to say that it's weird, because I don't necessarily feel this game should be cheaper. $15 seems like a totally fair price given the competition, but at the same time, you know, if you're going to price your game there, it's kind of got to be as good as games in that region are. I don't know. Maybe there's a certain crowd out here that enjoys this game more than I do. I wouldn't necessarily surprise me. We're going to try to beat Old Spike here. I kind of seem like I'm getting close to death, but at the same time, I welcome it, so really the game holds no power over me, I guess. We just kind of roll over to the side here. I want to pick up as much gold as possible. Upgrading yourself via buying things with gold has not seemed that viable so far. Maybe it's just because I'm lazy and I don't pick up all the gold that's kind of available to me, but for the most part, no, I'm actually going to faint here. I believe you just respawn after the boss fight, or before the boss fight, and you'd go back into it. But yeah, you know what? We're going to go back to the exit level here, and that is gonna do it. I'm fairly confident, shall I say, that I would be able to beat that, not given the multitasking of me talking and playing at the same time. But this is Sacred Citadel, published by Deep Silver, available now for PC, via Steam, Xbox Live Arcade, and PSN. There will be a link in the video description if you want to check it out. I will say there is a 3-pack. It is 3-player co-op, in case you didn't notice it before. If I go into local game here, yeah, it's 3-player co-op. Not 4-player. Again, I guess getting back to that Golden Axe stuff. But there is a 3-pack sale available on Steam. I think it's $35 for 3 instead of the $45 that you get if you all bought it separately. So that might be one incentive. And again, there will be a link to the store page in the video description. But overall, I feel like Sacred Citadel is definitely, you know, it's skippable at its current price. If it goes down, way down in a Steam sale, then you and your friends could have a decently fun afternoon with this, I believe. But as it is right now, if you already own Castle Crashers, it's probably, you know, 80% of you do, feel free to just keep playing that, I guess, instead. Otherwise, maybe consider buying Castle Crashers now that it's available on Steam. In any case, thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.